Hi, I'm Brian.
I'm Derica.
Do it.
And you are watching City Steading.
You get that joke if you watched the last video. So here we are. This is a big requested video that I didn't expect to be a big request. This is my very fancy labeling of Viking Blood. Now, what we're going to do, because it's already bottled, as you can tell, it's in a bottle, we're going to taste it. And we're going to tell you all the stuff that I did wrong. Not the stuff that other people told me in the comments that I did wrong. All the stuff that I know I did wrong, that I would have done differently, that I would have actually done. Not some of the stuff that people suggested. Like, I'm not putting chemicals. I don't do any of that stuff. Let me explain. People have been making mead and alcohol for 5,000 years. I mean, I heard this statement today. Mead is the OG of alcohol. I just thought that was awesome because it's like the first alcohol man ever made, okay? So they literally took some honey and some water and poured it in a big pot and left it out. And it made mead, and they drank it, and they lived to tell the story. When you take it from that level, anything that we do today is going to be better than that, okay? They literally didn't understand how yeast worked. It was alembic because it was just all wild yeast. They thought the stick that they stirred it with was magical. In a way, they were kind of right because the yeast would get embedded in that stick and it got passed down from generation to generation, and with each successive batch that they made, more yeast got embedded, so they actually had a better strain of yeast working on their mead. Neat, right? They called it a magic stick. I got a comment today. Somebody asked if I used a magic spoon. I thought that was awesome. I said maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. Anyway, so the general gist is this. We made the Viking Blood. When I first tasted it, when I was getting ready to rack it, it wasn't good. In hindsight, I think it was better than I thought it was at the time. In hindsight, I think it was better than I thought it was at the time. But what I did was we racked it. I let that sit for several more weeks. And then I got some tart cherry juice. Now that word tart, that's the important part because all the cherries that were put in this were tart cherries, not sweet cherries. So in my head, I'm thinking, ooh, cherry juice. When I tasted it, it didn't taste like cherries to me. In hindsight, now thinking, if I thought tart cherries in my head, it would taste like tart cherries. Kind of like if you've ever had a hard cider, a dry hard cider, if you think it's going to taste like Angry Orchard or some of the other stuff out there, no. But if you think beer and then drink that hard cider, it tastes really good because that's more of what it tastes like is beer. It's a little more bitter, it's not as sweet, and that's what this turned out to be, kind of that idea. It's still got some sweetness to it, but it's actually got that strong cherry tart flavor with the honey as a backbone. So anyway, I'm going to open the bottle. We're going to pour some, and we're going to drink while you guys watch. Sorry we don't have taste division. Otherwise, I'd totally share this with you. We have several bottles. You hear there was a little bit of a fizz there. A lot of the time, if I don't degas like for hours and hours and hours, a little bit of CO2 stays dissolved in there. We had a bottle of wine that was sparkling wine. We didn't know. Friend opened it up and it just went all over the place. And yes, it really went all over the place. Anyway, I'm going to be a gentleman. Pour hers first. Now you want to be careful whenever you do a homemade brew like this because you're always... I could pour more if you want. It depends how much you want to drink. You're always going to have a little bit of sediment at the bottom. So you want to be very careful and make sure that the neck of your bottle doesn't go too high. Like, don't just dump it, no matter what vessel you're putting it into. Now, the first thing I want to say is the color on this stuff is really awesome. I mean, it really looks, it's a blood red. It's a strong, strong red color. It's really nice. By the way, don't you love the New Orleans glasses? These are for whiskey, but this isn't whiskey.
That's whiskey.
We should toast. Sláinte. She says other words. So, when you smell it...
It smells like cherry.
Thanks, it's very helpful. Actually has a really strong cherry smell, way more than it did. Now, something to remember, this was bottled on the 13th of July. However, I think it was started back in March or April, so it's been sitting for quite some time. It sat in the full carboy for weeks, just because I wanted to give it more age and let it sit and let it get better and better and better. And I think the age really did help this tremendously. But anyway, the on the nose, strong cherry. I mean, it's almost like take tart cherries and honey mixed together, which, shocker, right? But yeah, I totally get that. Get a little bit of alcohol smell too. I estimate this as 10%. It might be 11 or 12. It's hard to say because of all the extra juicing I did and the fruits. I didn't really feel like going through a whole calculation, so I put 10% on the bottle.
We recently did a tour of France through wines class, and I found out some interesting things. I learned a lot in that class, and one of the things that I learned is that I really don't like French wine. No offense to the glorious nation of France. But
smells like feet.
It's...
That's what you can say.
I know. The more and more we were drinking, the more my notes and profiles were.
Everything was in reference to how much feet it smelled like.
Yeah. So
not as much like feet.
When this was very green before Brian continued his augmentation of this, it did have a strong foot note. But now, and that's why he's making fun of me for me saying that it smelled like cherries, I'm not getting any of that foot.
Yeah, it's gone.
Note.
And that sulfur dioxide sometimes gets it's residual in the liquid, and that's why it starts to come out. But there's also different reactions that happen and things like that. But the sulfur dioxide will actually give it that weird footy smell and sometimes taste. It comes out a lot in hard ciders, not so much in meads in my experience, but it does happen.
You do get a little bit of the alcohol scent, but it's not a strong phenolic.
It's not overpowering.
It's not like fingernail polish remover or anything like that. Some of the really strong stuff, you'll smell it, and that's all you get in the nose is that alcohol scent.
I could really put my nose in there. It's no big deal.
Yeah, this is
then
nice.
Again, this is weaker than whiskey, so I'm fine.
But I really do get the cherry and then the honey and then a little bit of the alcohol.
I'm tasting it.
All right.
Wow, if you let it sit in your mouth for a minute, it really is. It's cherry, but that honey is still there. This is actually really good.
But if you notice in our high class labeling here, I did put tart cherry right on the label.
Yeah.
Because that's that psychological thing. If you just read cherry and you think sweet cherry, when you taste this, it's really going to be a shock to the system. You're going to be like, whoa, what is? Because your cheeks kind of pucker in because it's got that sharp tartness.
What's interesting is I used frozen cherry, so I used the whole cherry, except for the pits, they were pitted, but it had the skins and the pulp, and I can taste a little bit of the tannins in this that I didn't before, but that helps to round it out a little bit. It gives it a little bite. When you first put it in your mouth, immediately you get that tart cherry immediately. And then as it sits for a little bit, it starts to get sweeter. And then the finish is nice and clean, nothing big.
Yeah.
And then it has that little bit of the tannic. It's not as tannic as some things. It's not like swallowing sandpaper.
It's kind of that astringent.
It's an astringent, just final little bit.
Almost like you get when you drink tea.
Yeah. Not even that much, though.
Right.
It's a little weaker than like a black tea astringency.
Yeah.
Yeah. This came out much better than I thought it was going to. For those who are wondering, what I added to it. Okay, we did the original 5-gallon fermentation, which was like 3 gallons really, and that had 2 packages of cherries in it. And I'm trying to think of what size the packages were. Were they weren't 12 pounds? They were like 5 pounds, right? Yeah, it was 5 pounds of cherries in each. So there's 10 pounds of cherries, and roughly, I don't know. You'd have to watch the video. But I think it was 4 pounds of honey made into like a 3-gallon batch altogether, okay? Just the way it came out. That sat for weeks, like 4 or 5 weeks. Then I strained out the cherries. That's when I tasted it and wasn't real happy. So I put more cherries in at that point and let it sit. I put 5 more pounds of cherries in it and let it sit again. Now those cherries, I don't think they fermented so much, maybe a little tiny bit, but not a lot. That sat for another 2 to 3 weeks. Then I removed actually it was even longer, it was like 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I strained that again, and I was happier with it, which gave me the idea, okay, instead of buying all these frozen cherries, because now that's 15 pounds of cherries, I said, let's get some cherry juice and see what happens. Now, because I remembered seeing tart on the bags of cherries, I got tart cherry juice. Had I really thought about it, I would have got sweet cherry juice, because that would have made this a sweeter mead. So when I put that cherry juice in, we tried it immediately before I let it sit for a while, and went, okay, when you think tart, now it works. And that was the key. It was a psychological difference. You had to think tart cherries, not sweet cherries. And that was a few weeks ago. I let it sit in the carboys that way for a while, in the actual fermenter for a couple weeks, and then I just bottled it recently, and it's been sitting in the bottle now for 3 weeks, give or take, 2-3 weeks, something like that. So this is really the first time we've tried it since then. I have to say, I enjoy it a lot more now than the first time. It has 0 foot smell, and that's going to be my new measuring stick whenever I do a tasting. How much foot does it have? I like that. Anyway, so this came out really, really good. Anybody that has any questions on the methodology, I know it's kind of convoluted and it was weird and I didn't record all of it, and I'm sorry. Life gets in the way sometimes. And I honestly, because I wasn't happy with it, I was pretty much hoping it would just go away and people would ignore it. Meanwhile, this video now has 24,000 views. So, obviously it was something that people are interested in, so I thought, okay, let's do this. I may do it again someday. I might make another one and do it a little cleaner, a little better, and use a slightly different methodology and come out with a better product. There's also talk of, in the beginning of the Viking Blood video, I said, this is not Viking Blood, and I held up the bottle and all that. Well, I know how to make that stuff too. It's hibiscus and, it has some other stuff. Well, we grow hibiscus in the backyard, and I'm planning to grow some hops for next year. So it's entirely possible that I might make our own version of the hibiscus hopped mead just to see what it's like and do it our own way. Do it with our ingredients, stuff that we grew at home. Maybe I'll even source the honey locally and get it's not cherries anymore. Now it's just hibiscus and yeah. Anyway, source the mead, source the honey, because we know somebody who's a beekeeper, and see if maybe we can make a small batch of that, just a gallon or 2. Because I tried the Viking Blood, and the first time I tried it, I went, this is okay. Then the second time I tried it, I went, I don't like this. Then the third time I tried it, it started out as, I don't like this at all, but by the time that bottle was empty, I kind of liked it. 19% alcohol will do that for you. Anyway, anything else you want to say?
My final note on this is that I get an interesting sensation that I don't get with most alcohols, and I attribute that a lot to the tart cherry, is that as I'm drinking it, the first sensation is the tartness, and it hits me right in the cheeks, and then as I let it stay in my mouth a little bit longer, the alcohol starts to affect my tongue. So
yeah, it might be a little stronger than 10.
I get physical sensations along with the aroma and the flavor sensations, so that's kind of interesting to me.
Here's my final word. It's just really good. Try it for yourself. If you try making this and you start running into troubles, feel free. Contact us through YouTube. We also have our website. We've had a few people email direct from there. Feel free. I try to respond to them as quickly as possible. Sometimes it might take a couple days. We do actually have jobs and do other things for a living for now, but someday we hope to be able to do this for a living. But that's a long way off. Anyway, we try to answer whatever questions everybody has. We try to keep up with everything. And keep them coming. Keep the comments coming. If you have suggestions for stuff you want to see me make, ask away. If I don't know how to do it, I'll do the research and figure it out and make it for you. And tell you how I did it, give you all the ingredients along the way. Anyway, thank you again so much. We just recently did a video where we thanked everybody for the number of subscribers. And I want to say it again. We're up to almost 1,300 subscribers in just a few months. And man, we couldn't be happier. This is just awesome. The experience of doing this, we learned so much. Hopefully, we're giving you guys a little bit of an education and hopefully entertaining you at the same time. I mean, that's half the battle. If we're boring, nobody's going to want to watch, right?
If you found this video informational, please give us a like. And
actually, no. If you liked the video, give us a like. It might not have been too informational. Anyway, sorry.
Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified as soon as we get a new video up for you. And again, thank you.
Have a great day. Bye, guys.